Welcome to Technically Speaking, the show for the technically challenged. Today we're going to be talking about digital photography, digital cameras, the different parts and functions they have, and some tips and tricks to make your digital pictures come out much better every time, and how to share them and print them out when you're done. Let's start with the different parts of a camera, which fortunately, from camera to camera, are pretty much the same. The most important part, of course, is the power switch. If you can't turn it on, we can't take the pictures. On most cameras, the power switch is a little button right at the top, and you'll notice that the aperture is opened. On this camera, just to be a little different, the power switch is part of the dial at the top. Once your camera is on, the next most important button is the shutter release button. The shutter release button is a fancy name for this button at the top that takes the picture. Besides the shutter release button taking the picture, it has some other functions too. For example, if your camera is on for a while and has begun to hibernate, and you look in the screen and the screen has gotten dark, just pressing the shutter release button will wake it up. Later on, when we talk about focus, we'll also talk about the shutter release button, because pushing the button halfway will give a focus, and then you press it the rest of the way. So that's our shutter release button. The next important part is the LCD monitor. That's the fancy name for this big screen in the back. The LCD monitor is where you line up your shots, look at the pictures when you're done. Besides an LCD monitor, some cameras also have a viewfinder. A viewfinder is this little tiny window that you would look through to take your picture. Many cameras no longer have a viewfinder because this LCD monitor is so large, but if you take a lot of pictures outdoors, you might prefer to also have the little viewfinder, because in the bright sunlight you really can't see very well on the LCD monitor. Next up is our flash button. The flash button also is accompanied by little icons that go with flash that will tell you whether you're using auto flash, or if the flash is off, or there's a flash on. Later, when we talk about setting up your shots to take better pictures, we'll be talking more about flash, but usually you'll see the little button and it looks like a little lightning bolt. These are the icons that will tell us whether we're using auto flash, flash on, or flash off. Next, most cameras are coming with zoom control. Zoom control is so that we can zoom in on a picture or out to get a closer picture. On most cameras, the zoom button is a little rocker switch at the top. On some cameras, you'll see a switch that looks more like this. And the zoom, as you can see, is controlling the lenses on the camera. Now, there are two different types of zoom that a camera can have: optical zoom and digital zoom. Optical means that the camera lenses are actually getting closer to the action, so the picture is going to remain clear. Digital zoom means your picture is going to start to pixelate, so we want to stay away from that as much as possible. At the bottom of our camera, we're going to have a battery case. And you're either going to have regular batteries, like AA batteries, or in this camera here, we have a rechargeable battery. And it came with a little recharger. The pros and cons are that batteries that are rechargeable, of course, you save the money on buying little AA batteries, and the cameras are usually thinner. The downside, of course, is if you happen to be out at an event or in the middle of a vacation and you forgot to charge your battery, you can't buy another one, in which case you could have bought little AA batteries. Usually inside this little camera battery case is also your camera's memory card. There are several different types of memory cards available. This one here is an SD card. You'll also see an XD card, a compact flash card, and a memory stick. More and more the camera companies are going to SD cards, which is the most common. And if you need another one, you could usually buy one at a drugstore or at a Staples or office supply store. The next thing we're going to look at is the mode dial. This is getting a little fancier beyond the simple on and off switch that we have on our camera. The mode dial is a dial at the top of our camera that'll show us all the different types of settings that we can be using. And there are little icons rather than words that tell us which is which. The one that says auto, of course, means automatic. That's probably a good setting for most of us to use. We press the button, the camera's going to choose the settings that are most appropriate. The next one, which looks like a little person running, is especially for sports. The shutter speed is going to be very fast, so it'll be able to catch that action while it's happening. When you see a little picture of a person, that's the portrait shot. If you're taking a close-up of a person, it'll soften the edges a little bit to make it more flattering. This one here looks like a person in front of a moon, night portrait. Again, softer edges, but combined with flash. Our next one, which looks like a mountain, is for landscapes. What this does is it has an autofocus for both the things that are close and far away. Next, if you see this little picture of a flower, that's for close-ups, but especially of nature shots. And then finally, you'll see a series of letters. These are more advanced settings so that you can alter the shutter speed, the aperture length, things like that. For the most part, you're going to want to stick with the automatic settings on the modes of your camera. Next, we're going to talk about some tips and tricks so that you can take better pictures with these cameras, now that we know all the parts.